Thermal research and development today, and we're doing the install of the Slingshot Rooftop. It's Thermal's part number SS-029-RB for the round bar roll bar model, or -SB for the square bar roll bar model. And we'll go through that during the install. Most importantly, we're going to check all our hardware to make sure it's all there. And the hardware comes with its own sheet that goes through each package, and each package is labeled with what matches the paperwork. So you want to go through and identify all of that. I would not open any of it at this time. We'll open it as we need it. But make sure everyone is there, along with a left and a right door hinge. Shipped separately in a small package is going to be the hardware to allow your top to mount up to either the round bar roll bar, in which case you'll get this hardware here in the sheet along with it, or if you have the square bar roll bar, you'll get this hardware here along with this sheet. When we unpackage the unit, the first 4 items we want to recognize are the tubing sections. So we have a front section on our right, a left and a right door in position, and then the rear hoop, which has the center console hood on it as well. And we want to find and identify the 4 rooftop skins. You have a front section, a left and a right door, and then the rear hoop section. These sections are normally all taped up together in one bundle. Then you want to remove the hardware package and identify all the separate packets along with the left and right hinge and the center console cover. There'll be paperwork showing all the different product there, and you want to go through it and make sure everything is accounted for. The final parts to account for are the mounting plates. These will be shipped separately to you in an 8x5 cardboard box. You'll either get the hardware for the round roll bar or the hardware for the square roll bar, depending on which you've ordered. Don't start the project until this box has arrived and is accounted for. We're now going to get started by assembling the front section to the rear section. Now the tooling we're going to need for this is a 3/32 Allen wrench, which we're also going to get a 3/32 socket assembly, a 3/16 Allen wrench, 7/16 open-end wrench, and a 13mm open-end wrench. What we do is we get the logo hardware kit, and we're going to remove 2 bolts, 2 washers, and 2 nuts. We're going to leave the rest of it packaged up because this is a temporary connection that allows us to assemble the rest of the unit. Just slide these 2 components together. Washer on top, dropping the bolt down from the top, caddy corner from each other. We're going to tighten the bolt all the way down, and then we're going to back it up a 1/2 to a 3/4 turn. We're going to do this on both of them. This holds the top in position so we can assemble the doors and the rest of the product, but still gives us adjustability for fine-tuning the fitment. We're now going to install the left and the right hinge. So we find the hinge kit, lay out all the hardware. The hinges should be identified in the bag, which is the left and which is the right. This is the right side, which is the passenger side. And you can tell that you have the right hinge on the right side by the notch cut there. That 45-degree notch is to allow it to clear the strut shock that'll come in later. With a washer on each screw, we're going to start in the middle, work to the back, to the very front. You have to be prepared possibly to jiggle it a little bit because this is going through the console into the front section. Put the remainder ones in. You take a 5/32 Allen wrench. We can use a socket assembly if we wish. going to tighten them all into place, and then we're going to go back and crack every one of them 3/4 of a turn, because we still need this adjustability to fine tune for the doors. We're gonna do the same thing on the driver's side. With the left and right hinge installed loosely, we realize everything is in place, but we still have some adjustability to fine tune the doors. Next thing we're going to do is install the door frame. So we got the left and the right door, and we got the door hardware kit. We're going to recognize this as the passenger side, our right door, because the latch, which is still loose, and we're going to leave it that way for now, goes on the outside, wider in the front and narrower in the back. First thing we're going to do is install the strut to the front section of the frame. That's our 13mm. We're going to install the non-shock section, or the shaft section, first. We're going to let that hang down, pull our hinge up. We'll set this door on the hinge. Our screw with our flat washer on it's going to come up from the bottom side. We're going to just start this nut. We really want to do the back too. I'm going to pull the middle back out that we installed for support. That allows this door to rock up. And we're doing that so that we're not fighting the stress of the shock. Go ahead and we're going to tighten this shock down with the 13mm wrench and install the balance of these screws. Tighten all these fasteners snug, still leaving a bit of room for adjustability. Once we have that in place, we're going to bring the door down and fasten this latch onto the strike pin till it locks into place. And with our 3/16 Allen wrench, we're going to align this front tube here. And we're going to tighten that latch up. With that in place, at this point we're going to go to the back of the section, which we can align up and down because of the slop that we've allowed in the hinge. We're also going to look at the gap between the front and the back. We can align that back and forward. We want to try to get that even. Now I'm going to carefully lift this door. I'm going to tighten a handful of these fasteners. With a couple of them tightened on the hinge to door side, as well as the hinge to center console side. We'll reclose it, see if everything's staying in place or if we need a readjustment. Once we have it correct, we'll tighten the rest of the fasteners in place. We're now going to repeat this process on the left door. Now we're going to prepare the car to accept the top, and to do that we need an 8mm Allen wrench that I'm going to use in the form of a socket, a 13mm socket, and I use blue masking tape to protect the car. So we start by lifting the hood up with the 13mm socket. I'm going to drop into the adjustment bolt on the mirror and crack it loose so it'll swing back and forth. And then with the 8mm Allen wrench, we're going to remove the 2 bolts holding the mirror bracket to the car. We're going to retain all this hardware for reassembly onto the new top. Now with the blue masking tape, I'm going to lay a couple pieces underneath that mirror mount. That'll protect the body of the car in case there's any slippage during installation. We're going to repeat that process on the passenger side. We're now going to install the rear mounts for the round roll bar. And there's a left and a right, and we're going to come in with a 1/4-inch Allen wrench and remove the top cap on both the left and the right side. You can tell this one's by the right side. As it faces forward, the hoop is coming down through it. And with a 3/8 Allen wrench, I'm going to go ahead and run this bolt into place. Just kind of hand tight. We still want some fine-tune adjustability from left to right. And we'll repeat the same process on the passenger side. To install the top with the round roll bar, I'm going to get the hardware kit, get two 10mm bolts and the offset cut washer and put them on each front left and right tire. We're going to then take the caps that we removed earlier from the rear hardware brackets. We're going to put one at the back behind each seat, and we're going to lift the top up and drop it into place. We'll put it up in place with these brackets coming under the roll bar. We'll start our very front bolt on both the driver's and passenger side. We'll start these caps on both the passenger's and the driver's side. We'll leave them a little loose while we go up and tighten up the front. Now we're going to install the second bolt back with this oddly shaped washer and the 10mm bolt. We're going to look through that hole and see where the threaded hole is offset to the large round hole. And we're going to match that same position with this washer. That way our bolt is going through straight. We're going to get it started, and then we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. The front tight, we're now going to snug up these rear saddle clamps. Checking the gap, keep it relatively even. We'll repeat this on the passenger side. Tighten up the bottom mounting bolts. And our frame is fastened up. We're now going to install the mounting hardware for the square roll bar. This is the hardware that came in the separate kit. It's the SS029-SB. We have the mounting brackets, which are two flat plates that we'll put aside till later, as well as the 8mm bolts. Put the washers on them. Get a 3/8 Allen wrench. This is our passenger side bracket. Faces forward and then dives to the center of the car. Put this in hand tight and then just back it off a little bit. Repeat this on the driver's side. This is now ready to install on the bike. I'm going to pull the remaining hardware from the square bracket kit to install for the back. And on each side of the car, we're going to put two of these 8mm bolts, one of the mounting plates, and it'll take a 6mm wrench to tighten it. We're going to put all of that in place on both sides. We're now going to get our front mounting kit, and we need an 8mm Allen wrench. And of this kit, we have 4 10mm bolts. And we're going to put 2 on the left tire and 2 on the right tire. And then these oddly cut washers. We'll put 1 on each side. We're now ready to set the top on the car. This is best as a 3-man job, but we're going to use 2 people as we're versed in it. So we pick the top up, we bring it over, and we drop these front mounts right into place. And the back ones as well. And then with these bolts, we're going to take 1 bolt in this very front hole, line it up, and run it in a few threads. Same thing on the passenger side. When we get the first one started on each side, we're going to come to the back, line that bracket up, Their mounting bracket, we're going to drop the cap screw into the countersunk hole. We're going to go through the slot of the roll bar. With that bolt started, we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. And take these down by hand until they're snug. These are all hand tight. We're going to go ahead and finish tightening them up on both the passenger and driver side. Now we're going to install the second bolt back with this oddly shaped washer and the 10mm bolt. We're going to look through that hole and see where the threaded hole is offset to the large round hole. And we're going to match that same position with this washer. That way our bolt is going through straight. And we're going to get it started, and then we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. With all the bolts started, we're going to go ahead and snug them down. We'll remove our protective tape. Follow the same process on the passenger side. Last thing we have to do is get our 3/8 Allen wrench. Come back and tighten these last two bolts on each side. Now on this particular chassis, the top mounted up perfect with no gaps at all on the back bracket. Had you put that front bolt in and had a wider gap back there, you would have to go to our adapter kit that shims up the gap so you're not compressing the top in by compressing these two bolts. The shim kit provided will have 4 actual shims in it, and you can use as many as 2 on each side. What we would do is we would see what kind of gap we got there, and if it's approximately 1/2 inch, we would use a single shim sandwiched between the bracket and the square roll bar. We would then use the next length bolts in the kit to come through and mount it together. And if you had a large gap closer to 1 inch, you would use 2 shims on each side with the even longer bolts to take up for that gap. On your front bolts, they're an oval hole, so that'll give you about 3/8 of a adjustment front to back. In between the shims and the oval holes, you can get the top to mount in properly regardless of the chassis without compressing the doors and the overall fitment of the top. And put the logo plate on for its final fitment. This is done with the 1/2 inch end wrench and the 3/16 Allen wrench. And drop the bolts with the washers down from the top. Now we're ready to install the 4 skins. So we get the surface skin mounting kit, which has 4 different items in it. We're going to take them all out and separate them. Got nuts, screws, some oddly shaped washers, and then we have some rubber washers that are cushions. And what we do is we take the stamped washer, drop the screw in it so it fits countersunk. Bring it over and do our best to drop it into place. I'm going to reach under and just start a nut on each one to hold it into place. With all the nuts in there by hand, we're going to leave that for now, and we're going to move on to the left door, the right door, and then the rear hatch area. panel's in place and the nuts started on the bolts, we're going to align all 4 skins with each other. We're not worried about elevation. We want our gaps even and our edges aligned. Once we got that, we'll start snugging a couple of them down. Remember, there's a rubber cushion washer in there. We don't want to over tighten it. When the screw comes about even with the end of the nylon locking nut, pretty good place to stop. This last bolt in the wire pocket will require a socket to reach up in there. We're now going to install our electrical box cover. We're now going to install our center console cover plate with the cover plate hardware. This hardware kit has 4 garments for the holes. If we decide to run any electrical wire through for lights or auto doors, anything like that, we'll need to install them. For now, I suggest leaving them out. With a 5/32 Allen wrench and the screws with washers, we're going to hold this cover plate up into place, align the holes. There is a front and a back to it. We'll get a couple started by hand. Now it's time to reinstall the factory mirrors. We remove the standard mount with the 13mm socket. We bring this over to the front perch mount of the top. Properly align them and snug them up. Repeat that on the passenger side. At this point, your top is installed. However, you want to start from the front and go to the back and recheck every bolt. You may also find that you need to fine-tune the alignment of the doors. The front corner is done with the latch adjustment, and all other sections are done with the hinge by loosening that up and aligning it to the proper fitment. You're ready to close your hood and you're finished up.